Welcome to the show. This is the Willpower Podcast, hosted by Will Holdren. Each week, we sit down with the brightest entrepreneurial minds and uncover the real secrets behind their success. And if you want every episode in one place, plus exclusive insights and updates, head to willpowerpodcast.org and join the email list. If you're ready to take that next step and unlock your next breakthrough, you're in the right place. Now, let's get to the show.
How we doing, everyone? My name is Will Holdren. I'm the host of the Willpower Podcast. We have a really incredible actor and entrepreneur, and his name is Sean Kanan. And Sean is the Emmy Award-winning producer, actor, and also a best-selling author. And he's best known for his roles in Karate Kid, Cobra Kai, and The Bold and the Beautiful. So it's an absolute honor to have him on here today. So with that being said, Sean, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Will.
Yeah, my pleasure. You have quite the background. Obviously, a lot of people know you, and you're quite the actor as well. You guys have done so much so far. So I'm excited to kind of dive into your story and figure out how you got to where you are today. But starting out, I want to ask you a question. I ask all of my guests, which is one, what makes you want to take time out of your busy day to hop on podcasts like these?
Well, as you said, I've written 5 books, and 3 of them are personal development books. And I am always trying to get the message out to everybody about the information in my books, because the information in the books is brilliant. And I don't say it because I wrote the books. It's not my information. It's all of our information. I'm really, just the messenger, probably repackaging a lot of stuff that either you intuitively know or you maybe know and have forgotten or haven't discovered yet. And I know the information in the books has the ability to profoundly change people's lives. And that's why I do it. I don't really do it so much to promote things that I'm doing, other than, my books, my TEDx, things like that. So that's my driving force, to inspire people.
I love that. And that's definitely the mantra of this podcast. It's all about personal development. We got a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this podcast, and
Right.
it's all about telling how you get from point A, where you are right now, with not a ton going on, and getting to where you want to go in point B, and scaling and finding out how to do that the correct way. So I'm excited to dive into that. And you, obviously being an actor, I know that is quite a journey to become an actor, right? And to get roles and to do that successfully, just like any entrepreneur, it's hard to get there. Right.
It is, and I talk to a lot of business people, and initially sometimes they're thinking to themselves, why am I listening to this guy that's an actor? I'm in sales. And I always tell them that I'm in sales too. I'm my own product, and I have to sell myself to the producers and casting directors who hire me. I then have to sell myself to the public through my performance.
Yeah.
And then it helps sell whatever TV show or film that I'm in. So really, there's a tremendous common denominator between what I do and what a lot of entrepreneurs do. And once I'm able to establish that common ground, I think there's a very interesting nexus between what I do, what I write about in my books, and what people that are ostensibly in completely different fields find in common. My acting teacher used to have this great saying. He said, I have more in common with a successful plumber than I do with an unsuccessful acting teacher. And I really thought about that. And what he meant by that was that the very things that it takes to become successful in any field of endeavor, from being a lawyer to in sales to anything, an actor, you have to do certain things to become successful. One of the things that it starts out with is having the passion and having character and really putting in the work to refine your talent as much as possible. I mean, we all know that talent's a gift, but it can be a tremendous curse if you don't pair it with hustle.
Yeah.
When talent's lazy and relies solely upon that God-given gift, but doesn't put in the hard hours, hustle will beat talent.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah. At the end of the day, you still got to put in that work and make it happen. Looking at your story specifically, how does someone from Pennsylvania end up kind of in Hollywood on some of the biggest TVs, biggest shows out there? Kind of walk me through that journey for you, and really, how long did it take until you got that first break in your acting career?
I grew up in Western Pennsylvania. It was kind of a hard scrabbled steel town. I was bullied a lot as a kid, and the movie theater was my refuge. That's where I would go. It was dark. I could hide out, and that's where I was exposed to my very first mentors, Obi-Wan Kenobi, the outlaw Josie Wales, Rocky Balboa. And it also planted the seeds for me wanting to be an actor because, like most people when they first see film, I was mesmerized by the images on a 30-foot screen and the incredible communicative power that film holds. So that was part of it. The other part of it was, I think
Yeah.
when you grow up in a small town, you want to know what is beyond your immediate horizon. And I was looking for a way to express myself, and acting seemed like a really logical path to take. Although in retrospect, it's a bit like saying I'm running away to join the circus. I started my political science degree in Boston University, and eventually knew that I had to go to New York or Los Angeles, transferred to UCLA to finish my degree and start my acting career. When I was 15 years old, um, a friend of mine wanted to go to this open call for a modeling agency, and I said, I'll go with you. He didn't get signed. I wound up getting signed, and I wound up doing a television commercial, which got me my Screen Actors Guild card. I didn't even know what the Screen Actors Guild was, right? So I've been a member for 45 years. And that played a big part when I came out to Los Angeles, because if you're already in the Screen Actors Guild, that's a huge advantage. So I came out here, and I knocked on a lot of doors, made a lot of mistakes, eventually figured some things out. And when I found out about the open call for Karate Kid 3, I showed up in line with thousands of people. And John Avildsen, who had won the Academy Award for directing Rocky and who had directed The Karate Kid and The Karate Kid 2,
Yeah.
picked me out of the line. And eventually I got the role. And from there, things became somewhat easier. It's very much a career, like most careers, that's a marathon, not a 50-yard dash. You have times when you're experiencing success that's tangible and visible to other people, and there's times when it seems like you're grinding. And what that really taught me, and this is something I talk a lot about in my book, if you want success, if you want to achieve success, if you want to achieve your goals, you have to ignore results. Now, that sounds oxymoronic, but what I really stress is focusing on the process necessary to achieve the results. Don't focus on the goals, because if you it doesn't mean don't plan for the future, and it doesn't mean don't architect where it is that you want to go, but focus on putting together a bulletproof process. So what is a process? It's really, if you think of it like a chain, and each link is an effective habit, and when those habits are put together, they create the process that allows you to achieve what you want to achieve. um,
Yeah.
it's kind of like driving a car. You and I don't really know each other, but I'm pretty sure we drive a car 99.5% the same way. You unlock your car, you get in, you put the safety belt on, you put something in the nav if you need it, check the mirror, throw it in reverse, back up, throw it and drive, obey the street signs, don't text, don't drink and drive, and you expect to get to your destination. You don't drive the car going, "Oh my God, I hope I make it. I hope I make it." Well, the reason is because you've built a bulletproof process for driving. And if
Right.
you can build a process for anything, how you deal with clients, how you deal with your significant other, your children, anything, and then when something isn't working, you go through the chain link by link and go, okay, this is working. Here it is. Okay. Um, and if you can replace that disempowering, ineffective, negative habit for one that works, now you close the loop on the chain, and you've built a bulletproof process.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And you used the chain as an example. So I'm curious, in your life, and what were some of those chain links that you really had to put together, like take out of your life, these negative things? Because on that note too, I think it's really impressive to see you where you're at now and how young you were when you first started your acting career. And to
Yeah.
your point, when people find success, it's really easy for people, especially in Hollywood, to just lose themselves. And an
Well,
entrepreneur can do
look,
something
man,
like,
I made every mistake in the book. I did, and one of the things, so literally, my book, I made every um, mistake, and I had to learn the hard way. And what are some of the processes that I'll tell you a big one, and I think a lot of actors in their career deal with this, and sometimes they never recover from it. I had to learn that I had to find ways to be happy other than when someone gave me an acting job and I was on
Mm,
set filming. Because if the only time that you're going to be happy is when you're having the opportunity to do, um, when as an actor, when you're acting in front of a camera, you're going to be unhappy a spectacular amount of your life. And
yeah.
so for me, one of the things I learned was how to build a life of meaningful happiness when I wasn't necessarily, working in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And a lot of that goes into taking pride and connection in the process for what it takes for me to be successful. A lot of it had to do with getting in touch with my own authenticity. I have a TEDx talk that became TED's editor's choice. And I talk about unbecoming. And I postulate that, from the time we're little, we're always told to, become someone, become a success, become something. And I said, maybe it's less about becoming something and more about unbecoming in the sense of getting rid of all the artifice and all the, emotional armor that we take on and all the external forces like social media and, commercials telling us what we have to be successful, and really getting down to the essence of your own authenticity. And when you do that, it's a huge force multiplier, because we've all heard that there's only supposedly one of us in the universe, and we each have, unique qualities that no one else has. Well, that's true. And if you can get in touch with that and be confident with that, it's a tremendously empowering thing. But it takes some work to do. So that was a process that took me a while to get rid of a lot of the crap. We get it from our parents. Most of them mean well, but they're projecting onto us, maybe things that they didn't achieve, things that they want to achieve, ways that they want to see us. And you really got to find your own path and become secure with that. And when you do, it's incredibly empowering.
Yeah. And to your point, I think society pushes that a lot on younger kids as
Sure.
well. It's always about, oh, go to college, you got to go do that, then you got to go get a job, and you're always looking forward to that
Yeah.
next thing. And similar to
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, if you just keep chasing that very next thing, you're not going to enjoy the present where you are right now. And that goal is going to
Yeah.
always be changing. And so if you're just going to only be happy when you reach that goal, it could never really happen. It
Absolutely.
takes a long time.
Absolutely.
Um, so let's say you're speaking to the young 20-year-old something right now, trying to find their way in entrepreneurship, or want to get started in their career. I mean, what are you saying to them to just put them in the right mindset? Not think too far out in the future, kind of think about now and just be present in the moment right now. And just what are you saying to those people?
The first thing I would say, it's three words. People ask me a lot what I would say to my younger self, and that is, you are enough. And by that, I mean everything you need to achieve the life you want already exists within you. It's up to you to chisel away all the stuff that doesn't serve you to get in touch with that authentic self. Okay. And that seems like it's kind of a large philosophical, non-specific thing. And maybe it is. Getting down to specifics, it's the analogy of the iceberg. People tend to see the part of the iceberg sticking out of the water that's metaphoric for when someone becomes successful, but they don't see the iceberg that goes down 5 times deeper, which is, the sacrifice, the work, the failure. Failure is a huge thing. I think
Yeah.
a lot of times, especially with the younger generation, they don't understand the concept that failing is part of the bulletproof process of succeeding. You must fail to succeed. The trick, though, is to look at failures as teachers,
Mhm.
not as, things that give um, energy to your inner critic, which, every time you try something new, it says, hey, you remember you tried that thing last time and you fell in your face. You don't want to do that, right? And so you
Yeah.
start listening to that negative voice inside your head that says, what if you fail? What if you fall? You got to listen to that voice that says, what if you fly? But failure is part of that.
Yeah.
I think also that it's incredibly important to cultivate um, communication skills. And I worry about kids who went through the pandemic and were homeschooled and missed out on some of the sociological benchmarks of interacting with other people. We're already interacting more and more like you and I are right now. And
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that you and I can't have a connected, informed conversation, but there is a reality to, being face to face with somebody in the same room, really getting more adept at picking up, social cues, visual cues, things like that. Um, Technology is wonderful, but if you don't cultivate the other communication skills, it can serve as a bit of a filter that makes it more difficult to do that. Um, Not lastly, but also, you got to be willing to sacrifice. You know what I mean? I mean, I have
Yeah.
so many people that think, oh, you work on a TV show, it must just be this fabulous merry-go-round of exciting things. And the truth of the matter is that most of the time I'm up super early, I'm staying up late learning 30, 40 pages of dialogue, and I have to make the choice sometimes when, other friends are going out for dinner or going away for the weekend. I can't do it. But you know what? It's the difference between, you know, getting what you want right now and getting what you really want. And it takes
Yeah.
sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, I think the younger generation, I mean, I'm obviously a part of that. I think something's happened where we definitely have softer skin. We take things very personally when someone says no, and I think that affects us going
Yes.
defenses from
Yeah, I mean, and listen, I don't want to be that old guy who's like, "You kids get off my grass," but I think there's
yeah,
a reality that it's become pervasive to become a bit of a victim and
yeah,
to look for reasons to be. Look, if you look for reasons to be offended, you ain't gonna have to look real far. It's real easy.
hmm,
But if you stop worrying about other people and
yeah,
and stop comparing yourself to other people too. You got God, living in Hollywood, living in Los Angeles, there will always be somebody with a shinier car, with more money, with a quote unquote better career. My second book in the Way of the Cobra series is called Welcome to the Kumite. And it's about fighting your greatest enemy, an enemy that knows everything about you. How do you
mhm,
defeat that enemy, which of course is yourself? You do it by every single day becoming a better version of who you were the day before. You're competing against yourself, not competing against everyone else.
yeah. I love that. Well, Sean, I appreciate you jumping on today and sharing a bunch of great knowledge. And for those that want to reach out to you or maybe find your books, what's the best way for them to go out and do that?
Yeah, you can find all my books on Amazon. You can reach out to me on Instagram. I keep my DMs on. It's Sean.Kanan at Instagram. And I hope everyone will take a moment and check out my TEDx. Just Google Sean Kanan TEDx.
Awesome. All right, guys, there you have it. Sean Kanan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Will. I appreciate it.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow the show so you never miss a new release. And if you want all episodes in one place, plus exclusive insights and updates, head over to willpowerpodcast.org and join the email list. Lastly, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, take a quick second to leave a rating. It helps the show grow more than you know. We'll see you in the next one.